And again, like Caitlin said, that a lot of my work was kind of very much influenced from like the graffiti artist from like the 80s. But I actually was here for Phil Adams, who had a show here last year, and he's a dear friend of mine, and we actually have done a collaborative show together. And when I saw this beautiful space and I had the opportunity to do it, I really wanted to, I don't know, do something that I felt fit the space better and also help me grow as an artist. Because I try to move around in styles an awful lot. And I think that as you can grow as an artist and really as a person by once you get known or good at one thing, take all those things away and see if you can still express yourself without them. And that's how you grow, and I think. And especially with this series right here, I really wanted to, and it's called Movement in Color. And what I did was I completely changed the way I work to whereas usually, I'd start drawing stuff and I'd have an idea what it's going to be. But this, I started using basically, it's all digital work just on a blank tablet, just like a blank canvas. And what I do is I take the blank canvas and I'll just put lines of color on it. And then I use like a palette knife tool and start moving that color around until the images actually present themselves to me. And that's what I've done with all of these. And the first two are older ones when I was really dealing with line, which again, I would not have any idea what these were going to be until the shapes started coming together and I kind of just, as it's created. And yeah, and then the others, it's just, again, more color. And I actually had a poem that kind of describes each like set of these. And just the whole inspiration was, and I thought about this, and it all started with one of the two in the middle there that has a kind of like a shimmery look to trees. And I was sitting like in a park, and I was seeing like the trees, and I was saying, it's like, well, that's, trees and green and everything, but when the wind would blow through them, you would see like a little glistening of like the yellows on the top. And that's when I started thinking about, well, everybody sees color, but it's also how we're moving and how the color moves and how we move when we see it. And that's what I really tried to kind of capture with these right here. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like picking your favorite kid, really, because. But I really am partial because when I was putting the show together, something about how those two images go together, it's like kind of, and I just envisioned it as basically a guy that was at the horse track at 11 o'clock in the morning and picked the wrong dog or horse, but I just thought, for some reason, I just kind of like how those two images and how the colors with them go together and how the story they tell. But again, I enjoy all of them. Yeah, but the reason I actually involved him here with these was because, again, and it was more about line and color. And as I would do these, I would just start with the colors, and I would slowly kind of the shapes would come. And when I did the first one, because you see how the lines go with the color, and it just as it came together, it reminded me of like when you're, if you're out on the town with your lady and you're doing like a tango or a dance, the lines of how the body go are just as much important as like everything else. That came off. And then in the next one, I was actually just trying to do as few colors as possible, as few strokes as possible. And it just ended up feeling like a couple walking down, like out in the town in New York City and walking down. And I even mentioned in the poem how it's funny when you're walking down the street in a big city, like the big buildings are super tall, they slowly move by. It's almost like two ships like moving on the side of you. But yeah, that was the inspiration for those.
Yeah, I like the contrast of that. That reads to me a bit more like cut paper. Mm-hmm. And then this, when you're talking about moving the colors around with the palette knife.
Yeah.
And then you said you wanted to use as few strokes as possible. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that, oftentimes watercolor artists see that, and they have almost a watercolor feel.
Yeah.
So that's really.
Yeah, and actually, I have to give credit to a local artist, Justin Fries, who is a brilliant watercolorist. And yep. But he's one of the guys I follow, and I take constant inspiration from how he uses color and everything. And especially those two, every time I see them, I kind of think about how much I love his work and how much that helped influence.
Yes, those are both because he said that more pop art and portraiture.
Yeah.
The one that you described as having to be similar to a bear
and seeing that. But again, that can work too, because again, one of the reasons, and like again, I'm here because I love this place talking about my work, but generally when I talk to people, I like to say as little as possible about it, because I think, especially if you are really, if you're really getting to where you want to go as an artist, it can be open to interpretation where it can mean something to everyone different. And I never want to pigeonhole that by saying, no, this is what it means, because I think that takes away the relationship the viewer has with the piece.
These two remind me of the Impressionists, who I love, because they knew that the world was not sharp, black and white.
Yep, exactly.
Everything's right.
Yeah.
Can you speak to this digital form, because I know a lot of us are not that familiar with it. We understand putting the paint on paper, but how this works in the digital form. Because yes, it still looks impressionistic and watercolorish, and yet somehow it's all.
And basically what it is, again, another kind of, not to always give shout outs to my other local artists here, such inspirations to me, but Marcus Blackwell is a great friend of mine too. We both work in like the digital field a lot, and we've kind of been two of the champions, kind of the uphill guys for the last 5 or 10 years. It's like, no, this is literally just like doing real art. It's literally the same, and the thing I love about it is, back in the day, like, you know, when you have to buy canvas and paper and materials, you know, you have to practice, that costs money, and it costs storage space. And what I realized when I started doing this is, you know, it's just like any other artist. You start with a blank canvas, it's just a tablet, and I use this program called Infinite Painter, which is free off of Google. It's basically like the free version of like Apple Procreate or whatever it's called. But you have brushes, and even the paints, like you have oil paint and different paints, and they still react with each other like real paints do. So you can't, yeah. And the thing is, like, people always wonder why I have a certain style that doesn't always look digital. It's because I never use the back button. Like, you know how you can back and erase something you did? If I don't like it, it's just like, I work just like canvas and paper, where it's like, if I don't like it, I just paint over it with white, or I paint over it, and that adds texture.
So it, like, in essence, just in my mind, it's actually infinite because it's actually the cyber world.
Yeah.
It can go anywhere.
You can. And the thing is, I've been able to, because basically I create every day, I've been able to do between 250 and 300 some pieces a year. And the thing is, what I always tell everyone who, even if they're not into digital art, to just get a tablet and screw around with it, because I've been able to develop at such a higher rate because I can work so much and do in all different styles, all different colors, all different things. I don't have to worry about materials. That I think it's really helped me open my mind to what art can be and help me develop in ways I never would have if I wouldn't have had the digital part of it. Yeah. Yeah, from your Google Play Store for Android, yeah. Well, I always make it to where I never stop and come back. I always, when I start, I always go all the way through to where it's finished. Oh, well, yeah, if I'd have to come away, I just save it where I'm at and come back. But the thing is, what I've realized, especially the way I like to work, because it's all intuitive, like I say, I start off with a blank thing, and I'm telling the story as it's coming out, to where I at least found that I don't like to stop, because I'm in that mindset to create that piece when I'm making it. And if I stop and go off and do something and come back, I'm not going to be in that mindset again where I was. So it's not going to be the same as it could have been if I wouldn't have stopped. So. Yeah. And then,
How long is that, like, what, is there an average about how long it takes?
generally I can do like anywhere between, I don't want to brag or anything, but I generally do these in about 15 to 20 minutes. And I only know that because I have 15-minute breaks at work. I do them when I'm at work half the time, and I'm always done by the time I have to go back to work. So. Generally, it'll always like start with something like, for instance, like with this one over here, like I'd started with all of like the bright colors, and then I put the one piece of black in the middle that I was going to use to like balance the piece, and just somehow a movement up got that little, what I call like a building right there, and that's what put the whole thing in my head to where it's like you're walking like in New York City or something, and it's raining, and then it looks like, you know how the lights shine on the pavement. But it all comes from, each one of these will have one little thing to where I'll just be moving the color around, and then all of a sudden I'll see something and the whole narrative will like pop in my brain. Thank you.
That is an amazing demonstration of inspiration and letting creative flow through you. That's a beautiful.
And it's a like Star Wars being important in my life, but it's just like how like Luke says, like just use the Force. Like they would always say, like just don't think, just feel it. That's exactly what it is.
I think your process is great because I spend my time on the computer at work, so I really like the materiality of canvas and paint and paper. But also because sometimes I often have to have two things going at once, so put things down and know what the next color is. But now they just paint to dry before I go on top.
And see, and that's the one thing that I love about digital art, and I've done so much of it, where it's kind of made me like a little, and depending on especially the women in my life, they will notice that sometimes I get a little impatient, just a little. But the thing about digital art is I don't have to wait for it to dry. And so when I try to like let my brain go, like when I'm doing canvas or paperwork, I realize like, well, I gotta let this dry out or else I can't get the solid color over it. So it's like, gotta wait. But then that leads to the fun part of the creative process is, like I said, when I'm doing these all in one motion, I don't like to stop. But when you have to stop, well, then that's also going to create something else because I'll see something, when I stop and I come back to it, I'll see something probably different than I saw. So it's just another part of the process that I enjoy.
How does the printing come out then? Like somebody says, I do want these, and I'm always curious about that too.
Oh yeah, what I do is it's always to order. It's always simply to order because like some digital artists like do like series of prints, and I always do basically just single print to order, and I single date and I sign them, and then basically if someone else would want the same print, I would ask the person that bought the first one if it's okay, because I generally try if I sell them to not and have that be like the only one that exists.
So do you have your paintings are all the same size? Is that because of the constriction of the program you use on the iPad?
With these, it's the choice because like a lot of time, and I've very rarely done squares. It's actually one of the reasons I decided to do squares this time was just because when I was here for Phil's show, I saw how the space worked with the bays, and I just felt that for this show, and again, this is like the first show. It's wildly different than any other show I've had. So, but I felt and I could see how it looks. I like the uniformity of the shapes. But yeah, but with the digital program, I can do anything from. A lot of them I do 12 by 18 is the size, but that can blow up to 24 by 36, and I can pretty much do any dimensions I like. Yeah, because what I do, and just not to get into like wonky digital talk, but as long as I save all my images in the cloud as a PNG form, which is like much bigger than like a JPEG, and as long as I set the DPI right when I actually create it. Yeah, they can get pretty much as big as you want. I try to make them and the reason I always do like the 12 by 18 size is because what I've noticed is it's easily by frames for a lot of people that fits in their house better, but generally I can blow, and I was talking with a couple people about possibly doing some like larger scale pieces for a show, but again, that costs more, and then after I'm done, it's like, well, what am I gonna do with 8 wall-sized things in my little apartment? It's like,
But it's great that there's a lot of breadth and having management.
yeah.
It's got a lot of versatility.
And that's what I actually love about the process, and why I'm always going to be a champion of digital work, because I mean, you can do a million different things, like color it a little bit, then thank you. Generally, I like being independent, frankly, and kind of like places like this is what I love, because at least in my experience, especially like towards Franklinton and depending on who you work with, that a lot of time it starts to become more about promotion than the actual work itself. And like I've worked with 83 Gallery before because they're very open to everyone. And one of the reasons why I think a lot of people don't do art anymore is because there's a certain exclusivity that comes around it and has for years. Like, well, no, we got to go to this gallery and we got to do, you got to look like this. And I just think that's counterproductive to people just being able to enjoy the art. So I try to keep it as literally as cheap and accessible for everyone that wants to see it, because I just think that's how it should be. And thank you so much, everyone.